Hello, I'm Raymond Go, and this is Nightline. The top stories. No investment lost over cabotage policy, says we in debate with Lim. And death of Cadet Officer Zulfarhan, 6 UPNM students sentenced to 18 years jail. Good morning. The International Trade and Industry Ministry, MITI, is drafting the new National Investment Aspirations to attract strategic investments with high-value economic impact. Prime Minister Datuk Sri Ismail Sabri Yaakob said this is to ensure that Malaysia remains relevant as a trade partner and preferred investment destination.
Keupayaan ini akan menyokong dan menggalakkan integrasi di antara industri tempatan dan rantaian bekalan serantau dan global.
The Prime Minister said this at the Industry Excellence Award 2020, organised by MITI on Tuesday night. He added the government realises that if Malaysia wants to have better access to the international markets, especially the United States and European Union, the products exported must comply with the predetermined environmental, social and governance ESG standards. He also stressed that the government will strengthen the ESG element-based approach in line with the sustainable and green growth agenda. The revocation of the Cabotage exemption, which allowed foreign vessels to perform undersea repair jobs in Malaysian waters, does not affect foreign investments. In making the statement, Transport Minister Datuk Sri Siong stressed that the claim that he had caused the country to lose 12 to 15 billion ringgit in digital investments by reimposing the policy was unfounded, as there are also similar laws in Japan and Indonesia.
Syarikat Apricot mempunyai rancangan baru untuk membawa satu kabel namanya Intra-Asia Cable Express ke Malaysia melalui Sabah dan Sarawak. Apakah ini tidak menguntungkan Malaysia? Agenda My Digital yang kita idam-idamkan. Sebab itu MOT rasa terpanggil untuk membawa pelaburan masuk.
He added that the cabotage policy was reimposed to prevent the outflow of foreign investments, to reduce dependency on foreign vessels, as well as to strengthen the capabilities of local technical expertise and to protect the country's sovereignty. Datuk Sri Wee said this during the much-awaited debate with DAP Secretary-General Lim Guan Eng on the cabotage issue, which took place on Tuesday night, aired live on 8TV and Astro Awani, as well as Buletin TV3's Facebook and YouTube page. Meanwhile, Lim highlighted that any damage to SubC Cables must be repaired as early as possible to prevent economic losses for the country.
Ini berlainan dengan perbaikan. Kerana apabila sesuatu rosak, perlu membuat perbaikan. Ia mesti dibuat dalam masa yang singkat atau pantas. Tak boleh lengah-lengah. Contohnya, kalau komputer anda rosak, jangan cakap 3 hari lah. Tadi YBW sebut, ada masa 3 hari. Jangan cakap 3 hari. 3 jam kita pun tak boleh tahan. So, itulah sebabnya bila kabel dasar laut rosak, kita kena buat perbaikan secepat mungkin. Tadi sebut...
The debate was held following a row between the two in the Dewan Rakyat over Datuk Sri Wee's decision to revoke the cabotage exemption made by his predecessor Anthony Loke under the Pakatan Harapan administration last November. Lim claimed that the move resulted in high-tech companies Google and Facebook bypassing Malaysia and costing the country 12 to 15 billion ringgit in foreign investments. The government is still studying the number of foreign workers who will be allowed to enter the country for the sectors permitted to employ them. Home Minister Datuk Sri Hamzah Zainuddin said the ministry and other relevant agencies were conducting a detailed analysis on the matter. Speaking at the Dewan Rakyat on Tuesday, Datuk Sri Hamzah said this was to ensure that the government has a strategic direction in achieving a balance between economy and health while the country is still fighting the COVID-19 pandemic. He added 212,926 foreigners and 11,751 employers had applied to participate in the labour recalibration programme, which will be implemented until December 31st. On October 22nd, the Special Committee on COVID-19 Pandemic, chaired by Prime Minister Datuk Sri Ismail Sabri Yaakob, agreed with a proposed Standard Operating Procedures (SOP) for the entry of foreign workers into Malaysia for all permitted sectors, with plantation being the first sector to be approved. The government had previously agreed to allow the entry of 32,000 foreign workers with special exemptions to meet the manpower needs of the plantation sector, especially oil palm. The Dewan Rakyat was told that the government expects to collect at least 3 billion ringgit through the implementation of the prosperity tax announced under the 2022 budget. Second Deputy Finance Minister Yamani Hafiz Musa said the tax was proposed as a result of suggestions from many parties who wanted companies not affected by the COVID-19 pandemic to participate in efforts to revive the country's economy. Yamani pointed out that through the prosperity tax, companies with taxable income of up to the first 100 million ringgit will be subject to income tax at a rate of 24%, and the remaining taxable income will be taxed at a rate of 33% for the year of assessment 2022.
Dan biarpun secara amnya kenaikan itu adalah sebanyak 9%, Ianya adalah secara one-off dan kita rasa ianya agak berpatutan memandangkan syarikat masih lagi memperolehi keuntungan tinggi dalam tempoh 1-2 tahun sebelumnya. Dan ianya kita rasa dilaksanakan secara adil dan tidak mensasarkan kepada industri atau sektor tertentu sahaja.
He said this when answering a supplementary question from Pontian MP, Datuk Sri Ahmad Mazlan, who asked about the estimated amount that the government will get through the implementation of the prosperity tax. Meanwhile, Yamani said the government had not yet implemented the capital gains tax comprehensively, including imposing tax on capital market profits. He added that the government also has no plans to reintroduce the inheritance tax as a measure to increase national revenue. Also at the August House, former Prime Minister Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad has requested the government to review the 2022 budget. The Langkawi MP said there were many allocations in the budget that could be reduced so that the country's debt burden could be lighter.
Dalam bidang pendidikan, pertanian, telekomunikasi, perbelanjaan kerajaan boleh dikurang dengan menggunakan teknologi baru dan juga menswastakan. Tetapi setelah telekomunikasi diswasta kerajaan mengambil alih teknologi yang terkini yang akan memerlukan berbilion ringgit untuk dibekal kepada pelanggan. Apa perlunya?
He said this when debating the 2022 supply bill in the Dewan Rakyat on Tuesday. Tun Dr. Mahathir stressed that he was aware that a huge sum of money was needed to overcome the crisis that the country is facing. But at the same time, the government needs to be careful so that the debt burden will not be passed on to future generations. Earlier, members of parliament took the opportunity to get COVID-19 vaccine booster shots facilitated by the Health Ministry in the Parliament building. Dewan Rakyat Speaker Datuk Azhar Azizan Harun said a booster dose was given to ensure that the safety of all MPs was at the optimum level. Several MPs from the government and the opposition who attended the Dewan Rakyat session on Tuesday were also present to receive their booster shots. Booster dosing began nationwide on October 13th for fully vaccinated individuals to ensure that the immunity received after completing their doses can be maintained for an optimal period, especially against Delta variant infections. 6 University Pertahanan Nasional Malaysia UPNM students escaped the gallows but were sentenced to 18 years jail instead by the Kuala Lumpur High Court on Tuesday after they were found guilty of culpable homicide of their fellow cadet officer Zulfarhan Osman Zulfarhan. Justice Dato' Azman Abdullah made the decision after finding that the prosecution had succeeded in proving that all the accused had caused injuries to Zulfarhan without the intent to kill. 5 of the 6 accused, namely Muhammad Akmal Zuhairi Azmal, Muhammad Azamuddin Matsofi, Muhammad Najib Muhammad Razi, Muhammad Afif Najmuddin Azahat, and Muhammad Shobarin Sabri initially faced murder charges, while Abdul Hakim Muhammad Ali was charged with abetting the murder, which all carry a mandatory death penalty upon conviction. However, the court ruled that all of them were guilty of a lesser charge under Section 304A of the Penal Code for causing injuries of the deceased with no intent of murder. The offence provides imprisonment of a term of up to 30 years and also liable to fine if found guilty. The court also sentenced 5 of the accused, except Shobarin, along with their 12 friends, to 3 years in jail after finding them guilty of injuring Zulfarhan to coerce a confession from him alleging that he had stolen a laptop. Shobarin was previously charged with the same offence but was acquitted of the charge at the end of the prosecution's case. The judge ordered the 6 accused to serve the sentence from the date of their arrests on June 1, 2017, and for both the culpable homicide and injuring charges to run concurrently, while the 12 others will begin serving their jail term from Tuesday. Dato' Azman, however, allowed a stay of execution of the jail sentence for the 12 accused pending appeal. All 18 students aged 25 were charged with committing the offences against Zulfarhan inside a room of a UPNM hostel between May 21, 2017 and the following day. Zulfarhan was then found with burn marks and bruises in an apartment in Serdang before he was pronounced dead at the Serdang hospital on June 1, 2017. Meanwhile, disappointment was written all over Zulfarhan's father, Osman Zulfarhan, after hearing the Kuala Lumpur High Court decision that all the accused were sentenced to 18 years imprisonment instead of a harsher punishment over his son's death. Despite this, he said that deep in his heart, he had forgiven all of the accused.
Secara jujurnya lah, saya maafkanlah kepada tertuduh yang membuat anak saya. Jadi sekurang-kurangnya kalau saya maafkan, mungkin ada kelegaan di hati kan.
Tadi hakim memberi hukuman 18 tahun, maknanya terbalas jugalah mereka masuk ke dalam, dan kepada yang 330 pun akan masuk penjara. Jadi maknanya terbalaslah walaupun bukan hukuman gantung, tapi pihak pendakwa akan membuat rayuan lah. So saya harap bila rayuan akan ada keputusan yang akan memihak kepada arwah.
After the break, Melaka state election. Organisers of programs involving Muhyiddin and Najib compounded. There was no gathering or social event related to the Melaka state election held with the involvement of two former Prime Ministers, Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin and Datuk Sri Muhammad Najib Tun Razak. The Health Ministry, in a statement on Tuesday, said investigations carried out by the Melaka Health Department found that the recent programs involving both individuals in Melaka were more of a walkabout. The ministry said the organisers of both the programs had been compounded in accordance with the Prevention and Control of Infectious Diseases Act for failure to comply with the physical distancing rule among the attendees. It added a 20,000 ringgit compound was issued to Melaka Perikatan Nasional as the organiser of the program involving Tan Sri Muhyiddin, who is PN chairman, while the organiser of the program involving Datuk Sri Najib, who is Barisan Nasional Advisory Board chairman, was issued a 4,000 ringgit compound. It also stressed that the relevant authorities will continue to monitor the SOP compliance and will not hesitate to issue a compound to any individual or organisation violating the public health measures set by the National Security Council. The ministry issued a statement in response to the viral issue of SOP violation related to the Melaka polls involving Tan Sri Muhyiddin and Datuk Sri Najib. On October 24th, Health Minister Khairi Jamaluddin said that all activities, gatherings and social events related to the Melaka polls are not allowed from October 25th to November 27th to reduce the risk of another spike of COVID-19 cases. Meanwhile, Melaka Police Chief Dato' Abdul Majid Muhammad Ali has clarified that there was no double standards involved regarding the compound notices issued to 3 individuals and the program organizer of a political party recently. He said the action was taken under the Prevention and Control of Infectious Diseases Act, which prohibits public gatherings.
Sebelum kita ambil satu tindakan di lapangan tersebut, kita akan memberi nasihat, kita akan membuat penilaian lapangan, kita akan mengumpul bukti-bukti dan baru kita ambil satu tindakan. Saya ingin menegaskan di sini bahawa pihak Polis Melaka tidak pernah menjalankan tugas 2 darjat ataupun pilih kasih ataupun siasatan yang berpilih-pilihlah dalam melaksanakan tugas.
He was commenting on DAP veteran politician Lim Kit Siang's claims that the authorities practiced double standards in issuing a 10,000 ringgit compound to a political party, although it held a mobile political ceramah without the physical presence of the public in Melaka last Saturday. He also said allegations that there were no crowds or SOP violations was also not true, as authorities have evidence from video clips and photographs taken by police officers in the field, and the compound was issued only after investigations had been carried out. In Selangor, 11 areas in Klang are at high risk of flooding due to the high tide phenomenon and northeast monsoon, which is expected to occur from Thursday to Sunday. District Disaster Management Committee Acting Chairman Muhammad Sharizal Muhammad Saleh on Tuesday said a surveillance team comprising various agencies and led by the Fire and Rescue Department will be mobilized to monitor the high-risk areas during the high tide phenomenon. Among the 11 areas are Kampung Tok Muda, Kampung Sungai Pinang, Pulau Indah, Pandamaran, Taman Selat Damai, Pelabuhan Klang, Kampung Sungai Serdang, Ban Sementa, Ban Sungai Keramat, and Pulau Ketam. Sharizal said the District Disaster Operations Centre will be activated during the period, while the local authority and relevant agencies have been instructed to carry out maintenance to ensure the drainage system in the affected areas are in working order. Based on the forecast for November 4th, the high tide phenomenon is expected to take place at 5:21 a.m. and 6:02 a.m. on the next day, 6:40 a.m. on November 6th and 7:18 a.m. on November 7th. The water level was also expected to reach up to 5.6 meters throughout the high tide phenomenon. Australian PM rejects sledging from France amid row. Details when we come back. Welcome back. More than 100 world leaders on Tuesday issued a $20 billion pledge to end deforestation by 2030 in the COP26 Climate Summit's first major deal. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, who is hosting the global meeting in Glasgow, said the agreement was pivotal to the overarching goal of limiting temperature rises to 1.5 degrees Celsius. The 105 signatories cover around 85% of the world's forests. They include Brazil and Russia, which have been singled out for accelerating deforestation in their territories, as well as the United States, China, Australia, and France. Experts welcomed the move, but the promise was met with skepticism by environmental groups who say more urgent action is needed to save the planet's lungs. The UN COP26 conference will continue for another 2 weeks to try to craft national plans to forestall the most devastating impacts of global warming. Meanwhile, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi said Monday his country would aim to stop adding greenhouse gases to the atmosphere by 2070, 2 decades after the United States and at least 10 years later than China pledged to do so.
चौथा, 2030 तक भारत अपनी अर्थव्यवस्था की कार्बन इंटेंसिटी को 45% से भी कम करेगा और पांचवा, वर्ष 2070 तक भारत नेट जीरो का लक्ष्य हासिल करेगा.
India is the last of the world's major carbon polluters to announce a net zero target. The goal of reaching net zero by 2070 was one of 5 measures India planned to undertake to meet its commitments under the Paris Climate Accord. Modi made it clear, however, that emissions-cutting pledges from India and other developing nations would require finance from rich historic emitters. Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison said he wouldn't take cop sledging from France as he defended his position over a broken submarine deal that launched a diplomatic crisis. The comments came after French President Emmanuel Macron accused Morrison of lying to him about his intentions to pull out of the deal.
I must say that I think the statements that were made questioning Australia's integrity and the slurs that have been placed on Australia, not me, I've got broad shoulders, I can deal with that, but those slurs, I'm not going to cop sledging of Australia. I'm not going to cop that on behalf of other Australians. I can deal with whatever people throw at me, but Australia has a proud record when it comes to our defence capability.
In September, Australia cancelled the $37 billion deal with France to build 12 diesel-powered submarines and instead negotiated a defence pact with the US and the UK. But the move infuriated France, which said it was blindsided and even temporarily recalled its ambassadors to Australia and the US. Rescuers in Nigeria were racing against the clock on Tuesday to search for survivors in the wreckage of a 22-story block that collapsed under construction in Lagos. So far, at least 6 people have died. 6 survivors have been pulled out from the wreckage, while dozens remained missing. Despite heavy rain, rescue workers and locals used floodlights to work through the night, digging through rubble and twisted metal. What caused the collapse and how many people are trapped under the debris remains unclear. Witnesses, however, said that there were possibly 100 people at work when the partially built block of luxury apartments came down on Monday. Local authorities in the meantime have ordered an investigation into the collapse and pledged to make the final report public. Welcome back. Sports tennis, the 2021 Paris Masters. Andy Murray failed to convert 7 match points as he suffered a first-round exit following a 3-set defeat to Dominic Koepfer. Murray enjoyed a convincing start as he took the first set 6-4. The former world number 1, however, failed to keep up his momentum as Koepfer came from behind to claim a 7-5, 7-6 victory in the next 2 sets. The German will next face either Felix Auger-Aliassime or Gianluca Marga for a place in the 3rd round. In another match, Pablo Carreno Busta advanced to the 2nd round following a straight sets victory over Benoit Paire. The Spaniard recorded a 6-3, 6-4 win and will play against Frenchman Hugo Gaston in the 2nd round. As we wrap up Nightline this time around, let's take a look as jet suit inventor Richard Browning gives a demonstration to the Army People Conference at the International Conference Centre at Farnborough International Airport in Hampshire. With that, I'm Raymond Goh. Thank you for watching and make sure you stay safe and well.
you.